Hello there, I hope you're well. I never really do formal intros to these videos. Maybe I should start. Maybe I should have like a little routine intro that I do at the start of every video, where I tell you all to like and subscribe, and I just basically sell my little soul out to you. I don't really plan these intros in case you can't tell, but I'm going to be discussing Inter Milan beating River Plate 2-0 in a game that was mostly decided by the two teams just deciding to have a scrap. And I'm going to be mostly focusing on Inter Milan because they've come into this tournament with a new manager and Cristian Chivu after a very successful reign with Simone and Inzaghi. And I feel like after the Champions League final, Inzaghi's reign ended a little bit poorly, and I feel like it's left a bit of a cloud on his tenure at Inter Milan. But I don't think it should be forgotten how much of a brilliant job he's done. Two Champions League finals, a Scudetto, doing it on a shoestring budget in terms of just focusing his priority on free signings. There's been the odd signing for money, but it's mostly been free signings, being shrewd in the market, and building a team that on paper doesn't look like it should be contending with Europe's elite, but has been. And so he deserves full credit. But he's decided to take his move to Saudi. I'm not a fan of it, but I understand turning down that money is easier said than done, so it is what it is. And Cristian Chivu has come into a place with very, very little experience. And what's changed? Not a lot. Not a whole lot, to be honest with you. It feels like Simone and Inzaghi with less, a little bit, because it's got the key and core elements of what made the Inzaghi side brilliant. It just doesn't really feel as effective. It doesn't really feel as good, and I think that's also in tandem with this team declining. I do think this team needs a bit of a rejuvenation. I think it needs investment now. They've done the free signings, and that's worked really well. But now I think just needs some fresh blood. But I'm not here to discuss what they could do in the transfer market. I'm here to discuss what they did against River Plate and what they've done effectively in the group stage of the Club World Cup. So in end to build up, it's still the same as it was under Inzaghi in a 2-4-4. A little bit different. I feel like it was the back three and one of the wing backs would be within that back four. Whereas now, DeMarco and Dumfries are pushed very high up onto that opponent defensive line. Dumfries supplying the width on the right-hand side and DeMarco on the left. Bastoni and Darmian into more typical full-back positions, and Asllani to drop in alongside a Cherby in the centre to collect the ball off of Summer. I may as well move the ball up to Summer. Mkhitaryan and Barella in the pivots. But one thing that made that Inzaghi side so brilliant was their fluidity and their positional rotations in trying to build out. And it was hell for man-marking sides. And Jan Sommer still gets involved in the build-up. And you will get, as I say, Asllani dropping in to allow Darmian and Bastoni to move forward. You'll get a Cherby pushing in, let's say, if Barella or Mkhitaryan are showing for the ball in these deeper areas. They'll look to show for the ball in that gap in between centre-backs, so a Cherby can move up into this position here alongside him. There'll be a level of fluidity with Bastoni. They won't always look to hold the width, those fullbacks. They'll look to maybe come into the centre and congest that area. And the constant movement, the constant rotations from the likes of Inter Milan, where there's space, where there's a box free in each specific zone of the pitch they'll move into if it's the better angle. So Barella moving in, maybe pulling Kranovita apart, means Asllani can move back up into this pivot position here to maybe take the ball on the turn and progress forward. There's far too many rotations and certain patterns to point out, as it were under Inzaghi. So I won't try and narrow it down to specifics, but just know there is a great deal of fluidity. And doing this with Summer being the extra man means that they can counter the River Plate high press. So him being the extra man, let's just say if it's Mkhitaryan and Asllani in this back line, this will cause Meza or Alejandro to sort of come up and press him, but he still has that time on the ball where he can make a movement forward with his passing, and that could be a direct pass to the front, as we'll speak about in a minute, or it could be with the likes of, say, Bastoni looking to show for the ball deep, Mastantuano coming up, Bastoni then making a little subtle movement off of him to receive the ball in space. It could maybe be Mkhitaryan then moving off the back of his marker to receive this chip ball over, if, say, that marker is going to press him while shadowing the ball into Mkhitaryan. It can look for that launch the ball over. So it's all about taking players away, finding that free man and rotating it around the back line until that man becomes free. Or, as I just said, that direct option is always there. And it could be through Summit, it could be through whichever player just happens to have the ball as the spare man to play forward. There's plenty of players in this deeper area that have a great passing range to get the ball forward. Bastoni, Barella, Asllani. And it can be with direct passes to the far side, and they love those switches of play into it. You generally won't see, let's say, Bastoni here taking the ball forward and then finding that ball over the top to DeMarco. It will be the long switch to the far side with maybe the defensive line pulled a little bit over to the side that's progressing the ball. So it means the far side wing-back has an extra yard or two to receive the ball, take the touch, and deliver their next action. Or it'll be with Bastoni playing the ball forward to Esposito, who will look to occupy his marker, get against him, use his physical threat, with then Lautaro Martinez showing for the second ball. Receiving it in space as the centre-back maybe doesn't want to come into that same vertical line as his partnering centre-back. You never want to cross lines like that when you're in a partnership. So it means Martinez can take the touch in space, he can find those balls out to the wing-back, or this is when the trigger is activated for the Inter Milan players to charge forward from these deeper areas. Bastoni, Mkhitaryan, Barella are the main actors of this. And then they can either carry the ball forward, driving that defensive line back, and then play the ball forward into the front, or maybe look for the run of Martinez as he's made that direct movement after laying the ball off to receive it back, with the wing-backs pinning the full-backs back, with the centre-backs getting pulled all over the place. There's space that can be created for any forward runners to exploit. Maybe even a third-man run from the likes of Mkhitaryan, Bastoni, or Barella charging forward from midfield, and they can exploit that way. And the main target is to find angles to progress through the centre. If they can't do that, if the defensive line narrows up, then it's a pass out to the wing-back, and they can get a cross in. They loved the pullbacks in this game into the penalty spot. Lautaro Martinez got on the end as he could occupy that deeper position, with Esposito being the main force that's dragging the defensive line back. Lautaro Martinez just hung a little bit deeper to get on the end of those pullbacks to attempt to finish off. River Plate got bodies in the way. Still a lack of real oomph and finesse to that finishing quality. There was a little bit last season into Milan. Feels like they're in need of different profiles and a bit of different quality to get the best out of it, but again, he's mirroring the Inzaghi style. We know it works. There's no point questioning that. But I'll move on to the main attacking phase now. Now, as you can see, it's in a bit of a lopsided 3-1-6, as you get Martinez and Esposito as the strikers, Barella and Mkhitaryan in the attacking midfield positions, with the wing-back still maintaining width. Aslani is the pivot, and I've really enjoyed Aslani's performances in these Club World Cup games. I think he's made a real claim for that position. There seems to be links with the Çalhanoğlu going to Turkey. Been a great servant for Inter Milan, but it does feel like he's on that downward trajectory, and it feels like this midfield needs freshening up, and with Aslani already in the team, that's a ready-made replacement there. So I guess it's a player you don't need to spend money on. But I think he's really given a good account for himself in this group stage. And you will get Darmian tucking in a little bit more to Acerbi, looking more like a sensible centre-back partnership. And it gives Bastoni the freedom to then attack that left-hand side, as Mkhitaryan can take up maybe a more narrow position. Mastantuani maybe getting caught in between if Bastoni pulls in a little bit too wide. If River Plate get pulled into a press to counter-press, then that pass can be played to Bastoni, who can look to drag the ball forward from these areas, get into these half-space positions, lay the ball off to DiMarco, again, so he can get into a good crossing position, then make an underlapping run to either receive the ball or give DiMarco more time to get his crossway. He's a real feature so far, and if there's one difference between Chivu and Inzaghi, it feels like it's a lot more man-focused, and it's getting the best out of the individuals as opposed to the sum of its parts. And Bastoni has been clearly a heavy focus on how he's looked to set up in these main attacking phases, getting him on the ball, using his technical quality with his long-range passing and his ball-carrying qualities to contribute to these attacks is a lovely quality. And to be fair to Chivu, you'd be stupid not to use it. Or it could be with Martinez overloading these central areas, dropping in, allowing Esposito to be the main striker alongside Mkhitaryan and Barella, and he's got a lovely touch, Martinez, who can receive the ball, ride challenges, and then lay it off to Mkhitaryan if he's got space, or if Mkhitaryan looks to make direct movements in behind, then this opens up space for, again, Bastoni, who can then look to exploit the space that's been left by Mkhitaryan's run. And to be fair, Martinez can even do the selfless role of dropping deep to then allow Barella and Mkhitaryan to make those direct movements in the channels, with centre midfielders and centre backs being caught by Martinez's movement. It's a style that's focused on extreme verticality, as it has been under Inter Milan, and they do it superbly. A lovely mix of direct quality and then dynamic attacking play when they get the ball into those central areas, when they overload them, and then give space to the wing-backs. It's not really changed a lot. I feel like I'm spinning a bit of a tale here to just try and make it sound a little different. It's very similar with just slight tweaks, which isn't a bad thing because the style works, but am I okay in saying it's a little bit boring? Maybe. And the one thing they do have is that with this central congestion, they can counter-press effectively if they lose the ball. Squeezing this centre to try and win the ball back. Aslani is shown to be a very capable counter-presser, winning the ball back, holding onto it well, and laying the ball off to one of his more attacking teammates with simple, succinct passes. Good on the ball, good off the ball. He's really shown some qualities, Aslani, and fair play to him. If that counter-press is beaten, with Aslani in the pivot and Chivu and Damian, who aren't the quickest, who are very unathletic, being left as the defenders if Bastoni's moved forward, you can get caught. You can get slain a little bit, and for a team that's so good on the counter-attack to leave themselves open on the counter-attack, they're not as well equipped for this side of it as they are the other. But we'll go on to the defensive side now. Now, Inter, in the main build-up phase of the opposition, they will press high, they will press man-to-man, and try and win the ball back. The biggest issue with this is they lack the profiles to really make it effective. Bit of an aging team, lack some athletic qualities in the press to really make it effective, aren't springing into the challenges the way they should be, and as a result they can lose ground in these areas. The strikers will press onto the centre-backs, Dumfries and DeMarco moving up from their wing-back position, press onto the full-backs, Mkhitaryan and Barella on the pivot, as Aslani takes care of the attacking midfielder, and the back three on the front three. Pretty simple. But because of the lack of pressure they can put on the ball with the athletic qualities they don't have, it means that the ball can go forward. Mkhitaryan and Barella can get pulled really far away from Aslani, so as a result, that can leave a massive amount of space in the centre of the pitch, and as a result, it can make them a little bit susceptible to second balls. But to be fair, they do recover well once that initial press has been beaten. And as well, if the opposition aren't going through the centre, if they feel like they've gotten that blocked off well enough into, then they will look to try and transfer it around the outside. And let's just say if Martinez Quarta was to show for the ball here, you'd get DeMarco pushing onto Montiel, you'd get Mastantuani maybe dropping into this right half space with Bastoni engaging. And so they will look to press high. The wide centre-backs will get very involved in these areas, following their marker, however deep they look to receive the ball. And it's got to give a lot of responsibility to that central centre-back, because any striker will look to turn and make these movements into the space that's created. So it's a lot of onus on Lautaro Martinez, or whoever's pressing the player on the ball, to make sure he can't get the time and space to produce a long ball, and also a Cherby to read those situations, getting himself positionally right to track that run. He can't keep up with him athletically and with speed, so he's got to use his brain instead of his body. But you can get caught. Sometimes you just lose athletically if you're not up to that level. So that's something profile-wise I think Inter have got to look into a little bit. But they play with risk. Obviously, the reward of that is fantastic. We all know why. There's a want and a need for high-pressing football. But obviously with this style, you can end up having to transition back into a defensive phase, and this is what it looks like for Inter. So they'll look to drop into a mid to low block in a 5-3-2, and where there is a little bit of difference, before where DeMarco and Dumfries were engaging on the fullbacks, if the ball looks to go over to that side, if Martinez Quarta decides to show onto his right foot to play it forward, Mkhitaryan will move across. You'll get Aslani coming across here, and Barella sticking onto the partnering centre-back on the far side. The one free man is the wing-back on the far side, or the full-back, but if Inter Milan have locked off that side well enough, then if the ball does go over, they've got enough time and space and men around them to react to the ball and get close to him. So if the switch does come, Esposito can move across, Barella can. And so they're decently well covered, and they can shift across and still protect the centre. It means that defensive line of five is still a unit, it's still together, it's still reducing space, and they can combat the attack and cover well. And that midfield three do a really good shielding and patrolling job in front of that back five to limit the space that's in front of them, so an attacking midfielder can't receive the ball in these situations. If the ball does go wide, as much as you can have an isolated wing back on that side, having the likes of Bastoni or of Damian that can sort of hang a couple yards in behind to track any underlapping run, to just give the wing back a little bit of extra protection, with Mkhitaryan dropping in and Aslani coming across as well, and just really squeezing that side to make sure there's as little room as possible for the opposition to operate in, is key to this defensive unit working. Back fives are made for deeper or mid-defensive units. If you can keep a compact shape, it's so hard to penetrate and break down, as we've seen over the years with Inter Milan, and it looks like it'll be no different. As I said, it seems like it's a bit Inzaghi with less, but I'd love to know what you guys think. Let us know down below. In a bit, lads.